In studio today with me, for the way it is Ambrose Wedder, who's a lawyer. Also joining us today, delighted to have Atieno Ndomo, who's a social policy analyst, Hassan Omar, Mombasa Senator as well, Ako Nasi. Thank you for joining us. Good to have a lady on the way it is. It's always rather masculine. But let's begin with our story by Rita before we go to this ICC story. The blogger Mutai and some of that campaign you've seen on social media, and the question that Rita posed towards the end of her story is that now it's unclear for some what is acceptable online and what is not. I mean, we know some of what Mutai, hopefully you do, has been putting up on social media, some of those allegations on corruption, but also that in the back of what you've seen in the recent past with Wadi, who was jailed, Moses Kuria, who was said to apologize, had not seen any of the public ads apologizing, and NCIC later came out to distance themselves from him, saying he did not appear to be remorseful. Your thoughts, Senator, on this story?
First and foremost, it's totally misplaced to put Moses Kuria along the same lines with Mutai and the rest of the bloggers. Moses Kuria is simply a bigot. If you look at his tweets, they're just about one ethnic group and another ethnic group, and one ethnic, the Somali, and so I think the matter is in court. Yes, absolutely. So I think it's not fair to put them on the same table, because you might start making it appear like Mutai articulates the similar issues to Moses Kuria. He doesn't. He tagged me on quite a number of his tweets, and I see, including sometimes on Mombasa County, very critical about everything. And I think that's what democracy, free speech is all about. And yet, if you look at the bloggers who've been taken into account, they literally have been questioning the state on matters very fundamental. You know, some friends kept raising this issue once, time and again. An individual who is well known calls for my killing, not once, not twice, calls for the killing of Muhammad Ali, a fellow who is known. We have filed a complaint at no lesser level than myself and the Speaker of the Senate. The fellow is these people are well known. And the next day, 2 or 3 days later, they passed bravado, saying that, you see, in fact, the person who should be under investigation is Hassan Omar and Muhammad Ali for supporting terrorism, and things like that. And so you look at a fascist state that promotes the hatred of one over others and tries to suffocate accountability. So I think if you look at it in a critical sense, it's a question of trying to impinge on free speech. I think I'm very happy the way the bloggers have stood by, but I just wanted to caution people like Mutai in future, and I think I've tried to communicate to some of his colleagues. When you're called to police stations, don't just walk yourself there. Raise the alarm. When they arrest you, have hotlines. You need to establish. We used to do these things in the civil society, so that then it just not become a private affair. This is a government lately that arrests people who are then, there's no trace of them later. Okay. So I think that's the kind of thing we must do, so that we're able to now mount the popular pressure. And I want to congratulate the media, the social media, Kenyans on Twitter, and everybody else who launched a massive campaign.
Right, Atieno.
I think the trap that the country can't fall into is the one where people are going to do self-censorship. I think the intention to muzzle voices, to kind of, make people afraid, that's what cannot happen. I think we know that, to defend some of the gains that have been hard-won in this country around freedoms, basic freedoms really, is eternal vigilance. So I think that the trap that we should not fall into is to be afraid. Back to the comments you made, Sophia, earlier when you're asking, should we now be worrying every step of the way for people who write, for people who blog, for people who make commentaries, that you have to second guess yourself and wonder, am I crossing the line or not? I think it is fairly easy to distinguish between criminal activity, and other things. So I think that the duty is not on people to be worried when they speak, whether they're crossing the line. I think that's not the interest that most people who are speaking, who are commentating, want to be criminals. I think people want to speak up. People need to feel that there is a right to dissent. There's a right to hold a critical view. And I think that this country has come a very long way to defend that right. That people don't have, we all we can't all be in, you know, those days when we were all in the same party and we were told, you know, one party is Mama na Baba. We cannot go there. I think Kenya has moved many strides ahead, and there's a reason why we all embrace these changes. We want freedoms, and so we have to defend them. So I think let's not self-censor. You know, I think the vibrancy that we see on social media, you know, needs to be there. It's healthy for our democracy. And it's very simple to distinguish between criminal activity and, you know, people who are expressing their voices, people who are wanting to defend our democracy, people who want to defend our freedoms, people who want this country to be better.
What are you worried about this trend that's slowly up?
I think it is long overdue. When we talk about rights, even at international level, we talk about rights and responsibility. There is a tendency to emphasize on rights without the opposite responsibility. People, social media in this country is a new development. People have gone in there with fake names, fake photos, because they don't understand the whole concept. And they have gone in there with all sorts of allegations. I'll give you 2 examples. One time in the same social media, while my own senator, Professor Nyong'o, was in America undergoing cancer treatment, it was some people on the media saying he's dead. Some of us like, how do you say that on social media? Later, nominated Senator Beth Mugo, again, some people I know, not even people I don't know, said, oh, Beth Mugo is dead. And they were celebrating. That is what some people call freedom self-censor. No. And then let's talk about corruption. Somebody getting rumors from a corner where you go, oh, I think this has done, then you post it as if it is gospel truth. There must be responsibility. Take somebody like Wadi, that Wadi man we are talking about. He posts that, oh, let the president enjoy this wife and that one and this woman. What freedom is that? How do you go into things you don't know? You don't have facts. You take a cabinet secretary, you take a whole president, you take these people, you make very concrete internal family allegations, and you say freedom. Freedom has responsibility, even under the international convention. So those who spread rumors, lies, falsehoods under the guise of freedom, even our constitution says you take them for libel, some of them you take them for hate speech, some of them you take straight to jail.
But shouldn't that apply across the board? Because I think perception also becomes an issue when it's seen only to be an issue when it's touching on the president or certain individuals. When it's on the other side, then there's not much action or vibrance in terms of going for the same people.
You are speaking very well. You are saying now it has started. So the quest should be apply it across board. Not what they are saying, freedom, freedom, freedom. Freedom to insult others, freedom to spread lies about others. Let's say, look, insult the president, face it. Insult Senator Omar that he should be killed, face the law. Insult Weda, face the law. Let it not be selective. But let us agree on the basic. And the basic is this. You insult, do abuse those rights.
But are there laws that are clear in as far as drawing that line, Senator?
We must create jurisprudence in this country that if once you're a public officer, you can't allege defamation or things of that nature. In fact, other countries have evolved so fundamentally, particularly when it comes to questioning public conduct. In fact, what happens if I allege that you're corrupt, the onus sometimes becomes upon you to basically respond to that allegation. But, and that kind of a thing is, because I have been in public office now for the last 6 years, I have not had a single allegation against my person about corruption, not a single one. And I think there's sometimes with people, they are whistleblowers out there, and we must be able to be able to give them that capacity to whistleblow. Look at the issue of, and I don't want to discuss the merits or demerits, where the hunter becomes the hunted. The issue of John Githongo. And everybody knows about the circumstances surrounding the Anglo leasing and all that happened. Now people are taking him to court for libel. And I think those are the kind of issues. Yet we know for a fact Anglo leasing has gotten us into you know, acrimony at an international level. We had to pay off some Anglo leasing, so to speak, outstanding payments. And I think these are kinds of things that's a loss to the Kenyan public. And yet somebody else can come and say later that, you know, Githongo defamed him. But that said and done, I think in terms of speech, I do agree to that extent where these people are not being charged for defamation. It's about legitimate public conduct. And I think as a public officer, you must allow a level of accountability unto yourself. It's the things we do in Parliament, it's the things we must do in certain social spaces. And I agree with him, there's a difference between insults. And I say there's bigotry, there's hatred, there's, you know, you do not advocate for the killing of one. But it's a question of, you can question public statements made by a public officer with respect to even issues you disagree with or agree with. And I think that's the way forward. And, to have been born in the rights culture is a blessing of our generation. To have been able to be able to explore certain parameters of which were no-go territory.
Yeah, final comment from Atieno on this issue, because some of these uprisings, perhaps because there isn't clarity, and people then should know, it shouldn't be an issue of outcry when there's such a move, because then the law perhaps should be clear. It's when this and this exactly happens, and then this course of action is taken. Do you think that is clear?
I think we're not deluded. And, you know, my friend Weda here, it's not to say that people who advocate for rights and who are, you know, out there do not understand that rights come with responsibilities. I think that's not the conversation. Anyone who analyzes what's going on right now can easily discern that what's happening is an attempt to create fear, an attempt to get people to shut up, an attempt to criminalize, you know, critical voices. And so that's not the same thing as saying, you know, that we draw a line on when people break the law or when people are being abusive and stuff like this. I think there's a very clear distinction. And you need to just cite the examples. You know, I think the actions that have been taken, from the way the cases are being handled, one can clearly see that there isn't the impartiality that he's talking about. And so as a country, I think we have to be very afraid. And these are the things that happen. I mean, the history of this country is clear for all to see. We cannot keep quiet, because today it is Mutai, tomorrow it will be me. And when we stop speaking, who will speak for me? I mean, we can't allow this kind of culture to creep back. So I think we are loudly saying no, because we know where we've come from. And we know where as a country we're definitely not going back. And this is not about not knowing that rights come with responsibilities. It is possible to make a distinction. And I think that the danger that everybody, the alarm bells are out there. People are saying, you're not taking us back to a country that is almost, you know, a police state.
Okay.